The transport shuttle hummed as it approached the massive orbital station, pressed his face against the viewport, watching the structure grow larger. The Galactic Naval Academy was enormous, bigger than any space station Earth had ever built. Beside him, Park checked her uniform for the 5th time. "Stop fidgeting," said with a small smile. "We look fine." "Easy for you to say," muttered. "You're not worried about first impressions." "Terrified," admitted, "but fixing my collar won't change anything." They were the first humans to attend the academy. After decades of isolation, Earth had finally been discovered by the Galactic Council. The meeting had been tense. Humanity was new, untested, and according to most aliens, primitive. But the Council had agreed to take 2 human cadets as a trial. If and succeeded, more humans would follow. If they failed, Earth would remain on the outskirts of galactic society. The shuttle docked with a metallic clang. The airlock hissed open and got his first look at his new classmates. The corridor was filled with aliens of every shape and size. There were tall reptilian beings with scales that shimmered under the lights, small furry creatures that chittered in high-pitched voices, massive aliens with multiple arms and compound eyes. One being appeared to be made entirely of blue crystal, glowing faintly from within. Every single one of them stopped and stared at the humans, straightened his shoulders and walked forward, followed close behind. The whispers started immediately, though the translation devices in their ears made every word clear. "Those are the humans. They look so fragile. I heard their planet isn't even classified yet. Primitives, why did the Council even accept them?" Kept his face neutral, but his jaw tightened. His hand brushed his arm, a silent reminder to stay calm. They had expected this. Earth was an unknown world to the galaxy. Of course the other cadets would be skeptical. A tall reptilian alien blocked their path. His scales were deep green and his eyes were cold. "You're the humans," he said. "It wasn't a question. I am in. My species has been part of the Council for 3,000 years. How long has yours been in space?" "About 200 years," replied evenly. N's lipless mouth curved into something like a smile. 200. How quaint. Try not to embarrass yourselves too badly." He walked away and several other cadets laughed. His face flushed, but before she could respond, a booming voice echoed down the corridor. "Cadets, Assembly Hall now." The crowd of aliens moved as one, flowing toward a massive set of doors, and joined the stream, finding seats near the back of the enormous amphitheater. The room could hold thousands, and it was nearly full. Realized he was seeing representatives from hundreds of different species, all gathered to learn the art of war and survival in space. A figure emerged on the stage below. He was reptilian-like but older, with scars crossing his scales. He moved with the confidence of someone who had seen battle. The room fell silent instantly. "I am Instructor Ock," the alien said, his voice carrying effortlessly through the hall. "For the next 4 cycles, I will be responsible for your survival training. Many of you come from peaceful worlds. You have never faced true danger. That ends today." A holographic display appeared above the stage, showing a beautiful planet with blue oceans and green continents. "This is a Class 1 world," Ock continued. "Garden planets, safe, boring. You will spend 1 week here learning basic survival skills." The image changed, showing a darker planet with thick clouds. "Class 3, moderate danger, unpredictable weather, mild toxic flora, 2 weeks of training." The images continued. Class 5, worlds with aggressive predators. Class 7, worlds with extreme radiation and violent storms. Each classification brought harsher conditions, deadlier threats. The alien cadets shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Then the image changed to a planet that looked like hell itself. The surface was covered in active volcanoes. The atmosphere glowed red. "Class 9, Ock said quietly. "Planets so hostile that even our best equipment can barely keep you alive. In 500 years of Academy history, we have conducted exactly 3 training exercises on Class 9 worlds. Each time, we lost cadets. The room was dead silent now, even and looked pale. And beyond Class 9, Ak continued. Class 10 worlds exist only in theory, planets where the environment itself is a weapon, where evolution has created horrors beyond imagination, where setting foot on the surface is suicide. He paused, letting that sink in. No cadet has ever trained on a Class 10 world. I have been an instructor for 40 years, and I have only seen 2 Class 10 worlds from orbit. I have no desire to see another. Felt a strange prickle of unease. Something about this lecture felt wrong. Now, Ak said, his tone shifting slightly. Before we begin, I must update our database with the member species. He gestured, and the holographic display changed to show Earth. The blue and green planet rotated slowly, beautiful and calm. The human, recently contacted. Let us see its classification. His unease grew stronger. Beside him had gone very still. The display flickered. Numbers appeared, ran through calculations. The entire room watched as the computer processed Earth's data, atmospheric composition, gravity, tectonic activity, native life forms, weather patterns, evolutionary pressure. The number that appeared made Ak's translator emit a high-pitched squeal of static. Classification 12. The room erupted in chaos. Aliens shouted in disbelief. Some laughed, thinking it was a joke. Others stared at the humans in shock and had turned completely white. "That's impossible," someone yelled. "Nothing survives on a Class 12. Ak was staring at his data pad, his clawed hands trembling slightly. He looked up at the humans, and for the first time there was something like fear in his eyes. "The computer must be malfunctioning," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Human cadets, please approach." And stood and walked down to the stage. Every eye in the room followed them. The walk felt like it took forever. "Tell me," Ak said quietly when they reached him, "this classification, is it accurate?" Looked at the data on the display. Oxygen levels that were toxic to most species, gravity that would crush fragile bones, weather systems that spawned hurricanes and tornadoes, tectonic plates that caused devastating earthquakes, an atmosphere that allowed dangerous levels of radiation to reach the surface, oceans filled with predators, land covered with venomous creatures, and humans, apex persistence predators who hunted by chasing prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. "Yes," said simply, "that's Earth." But Ak's voice was barely a whisper now. "Your population?" "About 6 billion, said. She couldn't quite keep the smile off her face. "We do just fine." The instructor stepped back as if he'd been struck. Around the hall, cadets were pulling up their own data on Earth. The reactions ranged from disbelief to horror. One small alien fainted. Another ran from the room and stared at with wide eyes. "You're from a Class 12, he breathed. You're human," finished. He looked around at the shocked faces, at the instructor who had seen war and survived countless dangers now looking at him like he was the danger. "We call it Earth. You call it we call it home." Crossed her arms, and now she was definitely smiling. "So," she said to Ak, "when do we start the Class 1 training? Should be relaxing." The emergency council meeting was called within hours, and sat in a waiting room outside the chamber while inside, the Academy's leadership argued about what to do with them. Through the thick doors, they could hear raised voices, though the words were muffled. "Think they'll send us home?" asked. "Maybe," said. "Or maybe they'll want to study us like lab specimens." The door opened, and a massive alien gestured them inside with one of his 4 arms. Commander had compound eyes that made it impossible to tell where he was looking, but felt the weight of his attention. "The council has questions," said in his clicking voice. "You will answer honestly." The council chamber was circular, with seats arranged in rising tiers. Dozens of aliens from different species sat watching the 2 humans. Instructor Ak stood to one side, still looking shaken. At the center of it all was a being made of blue crystal that pulsed with inner light. "I am Counselor," the crystalline being said, its voice like singing glass. "The computer classification of your world has caused considerable concern. We need verification. Is Earth truly a Class 12, or is this a database error?" "It's accurate," said. "Earth is dangerous, we know that, we've always known that." "Impossible," another counselor said, a furred creature with too many teeth. "No species can evolve on a Class 12 world. The environmental pressure would prevent complex life from developing." "Perhaps that's true on other worlds," a new voice said from the doorway. Everyone turned to see a human woman entering the chamber. She was older, with gray streaking her dark hair, and she carried herself with quiet authority. "But Earth doesn't follow your rules." "And you are?" asked. "Dr. Xenobiology Specialist from Earth." She bowed slightly to the council, then moved to stand beside, and "I was asked to come and explain humanity's evolution. I brought samples and data." What followed was 2 hours of horrified silence as Doctor calmly explained Earth's history. She showed them geological data about the ice ages that had covered most of the planet in glaciers. She explained the mass extinction events that had wiped out entire ecosystems, yet somehow life had always recovered. She described Earth's atmosphere, how the high oxygen content was literally poison to most galactic species. Then she got to Earth's wildlife. The holographic display showed a great white shark. "This is a predator from our oceans," Doctor said. "It can detect electrical impulses from a heartbeat. It has rows of serrated teeth that replace themselves. It can bite through steel." Several counselors shifted nervously. "This is a crocodile. It can grow to 7 meters long. It has the strongest bite force of any animal on Earth. It's an ambush predator that drags prey underwater to drown them." More nervous shifting. "This is a grizzly bear. It weighs up to 600 kilograms. It can run at 50 kilometers per hour. It can crush a bowling ball in its jaws." "And you coexist with these creatures?" one counselor asked weakly. "These are just the ones we know about," Doctor said. "Earth's oceans are 95% unexplored. We discover new species every year. Some of them are terrifying." She paused. "But the most dangerous predator on Earth isn't any of these." The display changed to show a human running across a savanna, chasing an antelope. "Humans are persistence hunters," Doctor continued. "Our ancestors didn't have claws or venom or armored skin. What we had was endurance. We would chase prey for hours, sometimes days, until it collapsed from exhaustion. Then we would kill it. We can regulate our body temperature through sweating, which lets us run in heat that would kill most animals. We can survive on almost any food source. We can adapt to almost any environment. We've lived everywhere from deserts to Arctic tundra to high mountain peaks." "You're saying humans are apex predators," Ox said slowly. "Yes," Doctor confirmed. "That's exactly what I'm saying." The council chamber fell silent, watched the aliens process this information. Some looked afraid, others looked fascinated, and who had somehow been allowed to observe the meeting looked like he wanted to disappear into his chair. Finally spoke. "If this is true, then humanity's presence at this academy presents unique challenges. We cannot train you the same way we train other species." "Then don't," said. Everyone looked at her. She stood. "Test us. Give us the same trials as everyone else. We'll prove we can handle it." And suddenly stood up. His earlier arrogance was gone, replaced by something that looked like desperate pride. "I challenge the humans to the standard Class 7 survival trial," he announced. "If they're truly from they should have no problem with or IV." Knew the trap immediately. And species was amphibious, evolved on a world with harsh radiation and toxic storms. They excelled in extreme environments. The Class 7 trial on or IV was specifically designed to challenge even the toughest species. "We accept," said before anyone could stop him. Doctor started. With one condition, continued. We run the exercise twice, first with standard Academy equipment. Then, if we survive, we run it again with Earth equipment. And hesitated, why? Because you need to understand the difference, said simply. You need to see what humans consider normal survival gear. The council agreed. The trial would begin in 3 days. That gave them time to prepare and to bring in one more human. Minyu Li arrived on the 2nd day, a compact man with quick hands and a talent for engineering. He reviewed the specifications for or IV and started laughing. What's funny? Asked. The gravity is only 1.2 times Earth standard, Minyu said, still chuckling. The radiation levels are high but manageable. The temperature range is actually narrower than Earth's, and these storms they're so worried about. He pulled up weather data. I've seen worse typhoons in Korea. Don't underestimate it, Doctor warned. She had stayed to help prepare the human cadets. Just because it's easier than Earth doesn't mean it's safe. The predators on or IV are no joke. What kind of predators? Asked. Doctor showed them the data. 6-legged reptilian hunters that moved in packs, acidic venom, excellent night vision, ambush tactics, highly intelligent. They hunt like Komodo dragons, Minyu observed. Pack coordination, venom, wait for prey to weaken. You've studied Komodo dragons? Doctor asked, surprised. Watched a lot of nature documentaries, Minyu said with a shrug. These or predators are dangerous, sure, but they're not crocodiles. They're not polar bears. They're not box jellyfish or inland taipans or any of the hundreds of things on Earth that can kill you in seconds. He looked at Anne. We've got this. The night before the trial, couldn't sleep. He found in the observation deck, staring at the stars. Nervous? She asked. Terrified, admitted, but not of or IV. Then what? Of failing, of proving them right, that humans don't belong here. Was quiet for a moment. You know what I think? I think we've already won. They're afraid of us, not because we're violent or aggressive. They're afraid because we survived something they can't even imagine. Earth made us strong and they know it. Then why do the trial at all? Because strength without proof is just boasting, said. Tomorrow, we show them what humans can do. On the morning of the trial, Instructor Ock gathered all the cadets who would be participating. There were 20 in total, representing 10 different species. The humans were issued the same standard survival gear as everyone else: environmental suits, portable shelters, emergency rations, and communication devices. Ash looked at, final chance to withdraw. There's no shame in recognizing your limits. Checked his suit seals one last time. We're ready. Then may your gods protect you, Ock said quietly. The transport ship broke atmosphere and through the viewport got his first look at or IV. The planet was dark, covered in thick clouds that crackled with lightning. The surface below showed barren rock formations and twisted vegetation. It looked hostile and alien and utterly lifeless. Squeezed his hand. Looks like Scotland on a bad day. Despite everything, smiled. Let's show them how humans survive. The drop pods hit the surface of or IV with bone-jarring impacts. Pod door hissed open, and immediately he felt the difference. The gravity pulled at him, heavier than Earth but not crushing. The air tasted metallic through his suit's filters. Wind howled across the barren landscape, carrying stinging particles of dust. Around him, other pods were opening. The alien cadets emerged slowly, struggling with the gravity, and moved better than most. His species adapted for high-gravity worlds, but even he looked uncomfortable. A small furred cadet named I nearly collapsed when she tried to stand. Walked over and offered his hand. She stared at it for a moment before accepting. He pulled her up easily, and she made a small sound of surprise. The gravity, she squeaked through her translator. How are you standing so straight? This is only a little heavier than home, said. You'll adjust. Keep your knees bent, center your weight. And Minyu emerged from their pods looking completely unfazed. Minyu was already checking his equipment and was surveying the landscape with professional interest. They could have been on a hiking trip. Instructor or descended from the orbiting ship, his avian features ruffled by the wind. His species could fly in normal gravity, but here he stayed grounded. "Listen carefully," he announced. "You have 72 hours to reach the extraction point 40 kilometers north. You must work in your assigned teams. You have standard rations, water purification, and emergency shelters. The trial ends when everyone reaches extraction or when I call an emergency abort." He paused, looking at each cadet in turn. "Or IV is a Class 7 world. The radiation will sicken you if you don't use your protective gear correctly. The storms will kill you if you're caught exposed. And the predators," he gestured to the twisted rock formations around them. "The predators are always watching. Trust your equipment, trust your training, trust your team." The cadets divided into their assigned groups, and Minyu were paired with an eye and a crystalline being named who communicated through light pulses. It was supposed to be a balanced team, but could see the fear in the aliens' eyes when they looked at the humans. "Let's move," and said, trying to assert authority. "We should cover as much distance as possible before nightfall." They started north. Within an hour, the problems began. I was struggling with the gravity, taking 2 steps for every one of Anne's, was having trouble with the electromagnetic interference from the storms, which disrupted his light-based communication, and himself was moving well, but his breathing was labored. The humans, meanwhile, walked steadily. They weren't even breathing hard. "We need to rest," I gasped after 3 hours. "I can't, I need to stop." And looked torn. "We've only covered 8 kilometers, we're behind schedule." "Doesn't matter if we kill ourselves getting there," said. She had already found a sheltered spot between 2 rocks. "We rest here for 20 minutes, drink water, eat something." While the aliens rested, Minyu climbed one of the rock formations to scout ahead. He moved with easy confidence, finding handholds that shouldn't exist. When he came down, he had a better route plan that would save them 2 kilometers. "How did you climb that?" pulsed the question, his light patterns translated by their devices. "The wind should have knocked you off." "I grew up in," Minyu said. "Lots of mountains. You learn to read the wind, use it instead of fighting it." Night fell suddenly on or IV. The temperature dropped 30 degrees in minutes. The alien cadets huddled in their emergency shelters, activating heating units. The humans set up their shelter but didn't seem bothered by the cold. "Aren't you freezing?" I asked, watching check the perimeter in just his basic suit. "This is mild," said, "like autumn in Seoul." That night the storms came. Lightning cracked across the sky and rain fell in sheets. The alien cadets sealed themselves in their shelters and waited it out. The humans stayed outside, reinforcing the camp's defenses and waterproofing their supplies, and watched through his shelter's viewport, unable to comprehend what he was seeing. The humans were working in conditions that should be impossible. They moved through the storm like it was nothing, coordinating without words, anticipating each other's movements. When morning came, the aliens emerged to find the camp not only intact, but improved. The humans had rigged a water collection system using the storm runoff and had identified 3 different edible plant species nearby. "You didn't sleep," and said accusingly. "We took shifts," replied, 2 hours each, standard practice. 2 hours, that's not enough rest." "It's plenty," Minyu said. He was already packed and ready to move. "We can function on less if needed. Once did a 72-hour training exercise with only 4 hours of sleep total." I made a sound like a whimper. They continued north. The second day was harder. The terrain became rocky and unstable. Radiation levels climbed higher, forcing everyone to wear additional protection. The alien cadets moved slower, conserving energy. The humans maintained their steady pace. Then, in the afternoon of the second day, they found the tracks. Minyu spotted them first, 6 stowed prints in the dusty ground. "Predators," he said quietly. The big ones, multiple animals moving together. Or's voice crackled over their communicators. All teams be advised. Apex predator activity detected in your area, or stalkers. Highly dangerous. Avoid contact if possible. And went pale. Stalkers, they hunt in packs of 6 to 8. Once they have your scent, they don't stop. How do they hunt? Asked. Ambush predators. They wait until you're tired, vulnerable. Then they strike from multiple directions. Their venom causes paralysis. Looked at and mean you. Something passed between them, some silent communication. Okay, said. Everyone stay close. Mean you watch our 6, left flank, I'll take point. You're giving orders now, and bristled. I'm trying to keep us alive, said calmly. You know this planet better than we do. Tell me how to spot an ambush. And hesitated, then started explaining. The stalkers liked high ground. They moved in shadows. They were patient, sometimes following prey for hours before attacking. The humans absorbed every word, adapting their formation accordingly. They spread out slightly, creating overlapping fields of vision. They moved quieter, more deliberately. And they watched, always watching. The attack came at dusk. 6 creatures emerged from the rocks exactly as predicted. They were massive, each one the size of a large horse, with armored scales and too many teeth. Their 6 legs moved in disturbing coordination, and their eyes reflected the dying light. The alien cadets froze in terror. These were the apex predators of a Class 7 world, creatures that had evolved to kill efficiently. I screamed. Light pulsed in panic patterns, even and couldn't move. But the humans didn't freeze, they moved. Shouted something in Korean, and suddenly the humans were in motion. They split up, running in different directions. The stalkers, confused by prey that scattered instead of huddling together, hesitated for a crucial second. Grabbed a loose rock and threw it with startling accuracy, hitting one stalker in the eye. It shrieked and stumbled. Minyu had found a long metal pole from their equipment and was using it to keep another stalker at bay, jabbing at its face whenever it got close. Did something that would later be reviewed and analyzed by the Academy's tactical instructors. He ran straight at the lead stalker, then at the last second dove and rolled under its body, coming up behind it. The creature spun, confused, trying to track this impossible prey that had just used its own body as cover. They're playing with them, and whispered in horror. The humans are playing with apex predators. But it wasn't play. It was tactics honed over millions of years of evolution. Humans had hunted and been hunted by Earth's deadliest creatures. They understood predator behavior instinctively. They knew how to read body language, how to exploit confusion, how to make themselves difficult targets. Found a narrow gap between 2 rocks and squeezed through it. The stalker following her was too big to fit. It clawed at the opening, frustrated. From her safe position, started making noise, drawing more stalkers toward her while leading them away from the others. Minyu used his pole to create a barrier, herding 2 stalkers together until they were getting in each other's way, snapping at each other in frustration. Kept moving, never staying in one place, making himself impossible to corner. And he was shouting, coordinating with and Minyu in rapid Korean that the translators couldn't keep up with. After 10 minutes that felt like hours, the stalkers retreated. They weren't hurt, but they were confused and frustrated. These prey animals weren't behaving correctly. They were supposed to run in fear or fight clumsily. Instead, they had fought like predators themselves. When the danger passed, was barely breathing hard, emerged from her hiding spot with a satisfied smile. Minyu put down his makeshift spear and stretched. "Everyone okay?" asked. The alien cadets could only stare. I was crying. Lights pulsed in patterns that translated to incoherent amazement, and looked at the humans with new eyes. "You fought them," he said slowly. "Class 7 apex predators, and you won." "We didn't fight them," corrected. "We confused them, made ourselves difficult prey. Predators are lazy. They won't waste energy on prey that's too much trouble. Where did you learn to do that? I asked. Earth said simply, we have worse. The rest of the journey was different. The alien cadets stopped doubting. They started watching the humans, learning from them. When they reached the extraction point 12 hours early, or was waiting with an expression that might have been respect. No injuries, he said, reviewing his scanner. No equipment failures ahead of schedule, he looked at, and you encountered stalkers. Yes, sir. The report will be interesting, or his feathers ruffled. Well done, all of you. As they boarded the extraction ship and approached, I was wrong about humans, he said quietly. About you, I'm sorry. Extended his hand, after a moment, and took it. We all have a lot to learn from each other. Yes, and agreed, but I think we have more to learn from you. The success on or IV caused chaos in the Galactic Council. Within a week, an emergency session was called. The subject was simple and terrifying. What exactly were humans and what did they want? Admiral Sora arrived at the Council station 3 days after the summons. She was Earth's first military representative to the galactic community, a veteran of conflicts that the aliens couldn't even imagine. She carried herself with the calm confidence of someone who had survived worse than politics. They're afraid of us, she told during a private meeting before the council session. The trial was supposed to humble humanity. Instead, it proved we're everything they feared. We just survived, said, same as we always do. That's what scares them, Sora replied. Everyone else survives despite their environment. Humans survive because of it. The council chamber was packed. Representatives from hundreds of worlds had come to witness the discussion about humanity, and Minu sat in a special section for human observers. Doctor was there too, along with a new face, Professor Nam, a historian and cultural expert. Counselor called the session to order. His crystalline body pulsed with agitated light. This council has reviewed the reports from or IV. The human cadets not only survived but excelled. They faced Class 7 apex predators and emerged unharmed. They completed the course in record time. This leads us to an uncomfortable conclusion. He paused, and the chamber fell silent. We have admitted a species to our academy that we fundamentally do not understand. A species from a world that should not support complex life, yet somehow produced apex predators capable of thriving in conditions that kill our best soldiers. Before we proceed further with human integration, we must understand Earth. We must see this for ourselves. The vote was unanimous. Within a month, a diplomatic delegation of 12 counselors and their staff would visit Earth. Humanity had 30 days to prepare for first contact on their home soil. The preparation was frantic. Earth's government scrambled to present their world in the best light while being honest about its dangers. They chose landing sites carefully, places that showed humanity's achievements without exposing visitors to unnecessary risk. But they underestimated how terrifying normal Earth would be to aliens. The delegation arrived on a clear spring day. The landing site was Seoul, chosen for its blend of modern technology and natural beauty. The aliens emerged from their shuttle wearing full environmental suits, their sensors reading the atmosphere with alarm. The oxygen levels, one counselor whispered, they're toxic. The gravity, another gasped, how do they move? Professor Nam greeted them warmly, seemingly oblivious to their discomfort. Welcome to Earth. We've prepared a tour that will help you understand our world and our people. Please follow me. The first stop was a nature preserve. The counselors walked slowly, struggling with Earth's gravity. They watched birds flying overhead with something like horror. Those creatures, Eye's representative said, pointing at a common sparrow. They navigate through your atmosphere at high speed. The air pressure alone should tear them apart. They're just birds, Nam said gently. They're everywhere on Earth, thousands of species. Thousands of species that can fly in these conditions, the counselor repeated faintly. They saw a stream with fish swimming in it. The water analysis made 3 counselors step back in alarm. This water contains dissolved minerals that would poison most galactic species, yet these creatures thrive in it. At a petting zoo designed specifically for the delegation, the aliens encountered goats. Friendly, docile goats that the human children were feeding and petting. The counselors watched in stunned silence as a 5-year-old girl approached an animal that weighed 3 times what she did and fed it from her hand. That creature could kill her, N's counselor said. The hooves alone. That's just a goat, Nam said. We domesticated them 10,000 years ago. They're harmless. Harmless, the counselor repeated. Your children play with animals that could be classified as dangerous fauna on most worlds. The real shock came when they visited a human home. The Park family had volunteered to host the delegation for dinner. They lived in a modest apartment with a balcony overlooking the city. Mrs. Park served traditional Korean food, kimchi, bulgogi, and various banchan dishes. The smells alone made several aliens feel ill. When they analyzed the food, their devices went haywire. This substance, said, pointing at the kimchi with a trembling crystal appendage. It contains bacteria, living bacteria. You're serving us decomposed plant matter. Fermented, Mrs. Park corrected gently. It's very healthy, full of probiotics. You eat controlled decay, the counselor said slowly, intentionally. Mr. Park offered them red pepper flakes. One brave counselor tried a tiny amount. The reaction was immediate. His species didn't have tear ducts, but his eyes swelled shut. The medical team had to intervene. What is that poison? He gasped. Just peppers, Mr. Park said, looking worried. I'm so sorry. I didn't realize they would be that strong for you. Humans consume this regularly. Several times a week, Mrs. Park confirmed. Some people eat much spicier food. The delegation left the dinner early, overwhelmed, but the tour continued over the next week. They saw more of Earth, and each new experience challenged their understanding of what was possible. They visited a beach where humans swam in the ocean. The counselors watched in horror as children played in waves that could easily pull them under. The lifeguards explained about rip currents and undertows, about the dangers of jellyfish and sharp rocks. The aliens couldn't understand why humans would voluntarily enter such a hostile environment for recreation. You swim in the ocean, one counselor said flatly, for fun. Of course, the lifeguard replied. It's a beautiful day, perfect beach weather. They visited a hospital and witnessed a natural human birth. 3 counselors fainted. The medical data showed that human childbirth was one of the most traumatic biological events in the known galaxy. The fact that human mothers survived it, let alone did it multiple times, seemed impossible. Your reproduction process should have driven your species extinct, the medical counselor said weakly. The mortality rate, the pain, the physical trauma. Humans are tough, the doctor said with a shrug. Women especially. They endure more than people give them credit for. They attended a taekwondo demonstration. Watching humans voluntarily hit each other, kick each other, throw each other to the ground, all as a sport, as entertainment, left the delegation speechless. This is your idea of recreation? Asked. Controlled combat. This is training, the instructor explained. Discipline, self-defense, also it's fun. Fun, the counselor repeated. The words seemed to have lost all meaning. But the turning point came when they visited a human military base. Admiral Sora gave them a tour of the training facilities. They watched human soldiers run obstacle courses that would challenge most galactic species' advanced combat units. They saw hand-to-hand combat training that looked like barely controlled violence. They witnessed a 20-kilometer march in full gear that left the aliens exhausted just from observing it. This is your standard infantry training, a military counselor asked, not elite forces. This is basic training, Sora confirmed. Every soldier goes through this. The Special Forces training is much harder. Much harder, the counselor whispered. Your basic soldiers could be classified as Special Operations Forces in most galactic militaries. The final demonstration was a survival training exercise. Human soldiers were dropped into a forest with minimal equipment and told to survive for 3 days. The counselors watched via remote cameras, expecting to see struggle and hardship. Instead, they saw humans thrive. They built shelters from branches. They started fires without modern tools. They found food and purified water. One soldier trapped and cooked a rabbit. Another identified a dozen different edible plants. They're not just surviving, N's counselor said. They're comfortable. They're treating a survival situation like a camping trip. Because that's what it is to them, Nam explained. Humans have been surviving in the wilderness for hundreds of thousands of years. This is in our DNA. This is what we evolved to do. On the final day of the visit, the delegation gathered for a closing session with Earth's representatives. Spoke for all of them. We came here expecting to find a primitive species that had somehow survived on a hostile world through luck or stubbornness. What we found instead terrifies us. He paused, his crystalline body pulsing with complex light patterns. You didn't survive in spite of Earth. You survived because of Earth. Every challenge, every danger, every environmental pressure, they made you stronger, made you adaptable, made you into perfect survivors. We're not perfect, Sora said quietly. We've made terrible mistakes, we've fought wars, we've destroyed ecosystems, we're still learning. But you survive, insisted. Always, through ice ages and plagues and natural disasters that would end most civilizations. You rebuild, you adapt, you endure. He looked at all the human representatives. The Galactic Council has a decision to make. We invited you to join us thinking you needed our protection, our guidance. Now we realize the truth. What truth? Sora asked. That perhaps we're the ones who need you, said. Your children play in conditions that would kill our soldiers. Your elderly survive what would hospitalize our young. Your standard training exceeds our elite forces. You eat poison for pleasure and swim in dangerous waters for recreation. You are, without question, the most naturally dangerous species in the known galaxy. The room fell silent, felt the weight of every alien eye on the human delegation. So what happens now? He asked. Now, said, we learn from you, if you're willing to teach us. Admiral Sora smiled. We learned to survive by working together, by sharing knowledge, by helping each other. Of course we'll teach you. That's what neighbors do. 1 year later, everything had changed. The Galactic Naval Academy had restructured its entire survival curriculum. The old system of progressive planetary classification still existed, but now it was supplemented with something new. The Human Adaptation Program. Stood in front of a classroom filled with alien cadets, his instructor's uniform still feeling strange after months of wearing it. Good morning, he said, and the translation devices carried his words to 30 different species. Welcome to Basic Survival. I'm instructor, I'm from Earth, and I'm here to teach you how to stay alive in places that want to kill you. The cadets stared at him with a mix of fear and fascination. They had all heard the stories by now. Humans from the Class 12 who could survive anywhere, who treated danger like an inconvenience, who had somehow convinced the Galactic Council to make Earth a training ground. In the back row, a young alien named or raised a tentacle nervously. Instructor, is it true you fought apex predators with your bare hands? Not bare hands, corrected. We use tools, intelligence, tactics. That's what this course is about. Survival isn't about being the strongest or the fastest. It's about being adaptable. Entered from the side door carrying equipment. She had become an instructor too, specializing in hostile environment navigation. It's about understanding your environment, she added. Learning to read the signs, knowing when to fight and when to run. Minyu was the third human instructor, teaching practical engineering and resource management. Together, they had trained over 200 alien cadets in the past 6 months. The results were remarkable. Survival rates across the Galactic Navy had increased by 340%. The training started simple. The first week was spent in Earth's temperate zones, forests and beaches that humans considered mild. For the alien cadets, even these safe environments were challenging. They learned to build shelters from natural materials. They learned to purify water. They learned to identify edible plants and avoid dangerous ones. "This plant is safe," explained, holding up a sample. "This one will make you sick. This one will kill you." On Earth, we teach children to recognize the difference by age 5. The cadets took frantic notes. Week 2 was spent in the mountains. The altitude affected the aliens badly, and several had to be sent back to base camp. The ones who remained learned about cold weather survival, about reading terrain, about the dangers of avalanches and rock falls. "Remember," said as they practiced building emergency shelters, "the environment doesn't care about your feelings. It doesn't care if you're tired or scared. You adapt or you die. That's the fundamental rule." By week 4, the cadets were different. They moved with more confidence. They questioned less and observed more. They started to think like survivors instead of victims. But the real test came when Captain Song received a distress call. Song commanded the Stellar Unity, the first human-alien joint vessel in the Galactic Fleet. Her crew was half human, half various alien species. They had been on patrol near the frontier when the call came through. "This is Colony Station Meridian," the garbled transmission said. "Under attack. Unknown hostiles. Planet classification 11. Requesting immediate assistance." The alien crew members went pale. Classification 11, 1 step below Earth. A true. "Captain," the first officer said nervously, "our ship isn't equipped for Class 11 operations. We should call for a specialized rescue team." "How long would that take?" Song asked. 48 hours minimum." "The colony doesn't have 48 hours. Song looked at her crew. "We're the closest ship. We're going in." The planet was called Meridian IV, and it was hell. Crushing gravity, toxic atmosphere, extreme temperature fluctuations, native predators that made or stalkers look tame. The colony had been established on one of the few stable zones, but the attack had driven the colonists into the wilderness. The Stellar Unity entered orbit and Song assessed the situation. "We need a ground team. Volunteers only. This is going to be dangerous." Every human crew member volunteered immediately. After a moment of hesitation, several aliens did too. They had trained under human instructors. They had learned survival. They wanted to prove they could put those lessons into practice. The rescue team consisted of 6 humans and 4 aliens. They dropped into Meridian IV's atmosphere in heavy assault shuttles, the kind designed for the worst environments. Even with all their equipment, the aliens struggled immediately. "The gravity," one gasped, "it's crushing me." "Slow movements," one of the humans coached. "Remember your training, don't fight the gravity, use it, center your weight." They found the first group of survivors 3 hours into the mission. 20 colonists huddled in a cave, terrified and running low on supplies. The hostile forces had been identified as raiders from a rival faction, using the planet's harsh conditions to cover their attack. "We need to move to the extraction point," Song said. 5 kilometers north. Can everyone walk?" Several colonists were injured. The aliens on the rescue team looked exhausted, but they moved out, supporting each other, following the humans' lead. The planet fought them every step. A temperature spike forced them to shelter in an underground passage. A toxic dust storm reduced visibility to 0, and then the native predators found them. They were worse than anything in the Academy's database. 4-legged creatures the size of elephants, with armored hides and venomous spines. They moved in coordinated packs, showing disturbing intelligence. The alien team members froze, old instincts screaming at them to run or hide. But then they remembered their training. They remembered's voice. Predators are predictable. Learn the patterns. One alien, a small being named, noticed the creatures were avoiding a certain type of rock formation. There, she said, pointing. They don't like those electromagnetic signatures. We can use that. A human engineer started setting up portable generators to amplify the effect. Another human provided cover, using non-lethal deterrents to keep the predators at bay. The aliens worked alongside them, no longer paralyzed by fear, instead focused on survival. It took 8 hours, but they reached the extraction point with all colonists alive. As the shuttles lifted off from Meridian IV, Captain Song looked at her crew. Humans and aliens working together, surviving together. "You did well," she said simply, "all of you." "We had good teachers," replied. The rescue operation made headlines across the galaxy. A joint crew had succeeded where even experienced teams might have failed. The reason was clear. Human training methods worked. Within months, the Galactic Council made it official. Earth would become a primary training facility for elite survival and rescue operations. The planet that had once been viewed with horror and fear was now seen as a resource, a teacher, a partner. Ambassador Park stood before the council to formalize the agreement. Earth will provide training facilities in various climate zones, he announced. We'll share our survival techniques, our environmental knowledge, our adaptive strategies. In return, we ask only that this knowledge be used to preserve life, not destroy it. You have our word, Counselor said. Humanity has proven itself to be not conquerors but survivors, not destroyers but teachers. The galaxy is better for your presence. Back at the academy, a new class of cadets arrived for their first day. They came from hundreds of worlds, representing dozens of species. They gathered in the assembly hall where, 1 year ago, the revelation about Earth had shocked everyone. Instructor Ock stood on the stage, older now but wiser. "Welcome to the Galactic Naval Academy," he said. "Many of you have heard stories about impossible survival, about humans." He paused. "Some of those stories are exaggerated. Many are underestimated." A hologram appeared, showing Earth in all its blue and green glory. "This is where you'll complete your advanced training. This is where you'll learn what it means to truly survive. And these," he gestured to where Minu and a dozen other human instructors stood, "are the beings who will teach you." Stepped forward. He looked at the sea of alien faces, remembering his own first day, remembering the fear and doubt, remembering the challenge to prove himself. "1 year ago," he said, "my instructor told me that no cadet should step on it. He was trying to warn me about the dangers of hostile planets." He smiled. "But I already lived on one. We all did. Earth made us strong. It taught us to survive, and now we'll teach you." He gestured to the hologram of Earth. "Some of you will struggle. Some of you will want to quit. That's normal. But if you trust the process, if you embrace the challenge, if you remember that survival is about adaptation and cooperation, you'll succeed. Because that's what we learned from living on a Class 12. We learned that life finds a way," added, "even in the harshest conditions. We learned that intelligence beats strength," Minu said. "That preparation beats power. And we learned," concluded, "that together we can survive anything." The cadets began their training the next day. They started in the Korean countryside, in forests that seemed peaceful and beautiful. They learned to build fires, to purify water, to read the weather. They struggled with humidity and insects, and terrain that seemed impossible to navigate. But they learned. Slowly, gradually, they adapted. Months later, some of them were ready for harsher environments. They went to the Australian outback, where the heat was crushing. They went to the Siberian tundra, where the cold was deadly. They went to the Amazon rainforest, where every plant and animal seemed designed to kill. And they survived. Not all of them. Some quit. Some couldn't adapt. But the ones who stayed, who persevered, who learned from their human instructors, they became something new. They became survivors. Or the young alien who had asked about fighting predators stood on a mountain peak in the Himalayas 6 months into his training. The altitude made breathing difficult. The cold cut through his protective gear, but he had made it to the summit. Instructor stood beside him, looking at the view. "How do you feel?" "Alive," Or said, "truly alive for the first time." "That's what Earth teaches," said. "Not how to survive, but how to live. Even in the harshest conditions, especially in the harshest conditions, life persists, life adapts, life thrives." He looked at the young alien. "You'll go back to your own world someday, and when you face danger, when things seem impossible, remember what you learned here. Remember that you survived Earth. If you can survive Earth, you can survive anything." Or nodded, committing the moment to memory, the human instructor, the mountain peak, the lesson that had changed everything. Years would pass. Graduates of the Earth training program would spread across the galaxy. They would face dangers and survive. They would teach others what they had learned, and they would always remember that had taught them to live. In the Academy archives, Instructor Ock's original report was preserved, the one he had written after discovering Earth's classification. It ended with a single line that had become famous throughout the Galactic Council. "No cadet should step on unprepared. Fortunately, we now have to prepare them." And on Earth, in the training facilities scattered across the planet, human instructors continued their work, teaching aliens to survive, teaching them to adapt, teaching them that the harshest environments don't destroy life, they create it. Once a nervous cadet facing prejudice and doubt now stood as proof of what humanity could offer the galaxy. Not weapons, not conquest, but knowledge, resilience, hope. "Welcome to Earth," he told each new class. "Welcome to that taught the galaxy how to live."